Yes, doctor, your face is
Can I have a background blur or something? No, there's no.
no, I think this is fine, sir. This is quite natural and
Yeah.
ఇక్కడ మొత్తం బాగానే వెళ్తుంది.
allow me to introduce you to our Central Director, HP Shenoy, sir.
Okay, I'm sharing actually. So, yeah. And I stop sharing. Okay.
Actually, this is not the YouTube is not receiving enough video to make smooth streaming. So ఇక్కడ నుంచి మనం YouTube
I can see now. There is there.
Okay, okay, sir. So what I'll be doing, we have not yet gone live. What I'll be doing is, once we go live, I'll just introduce you, and then you can go ahead with the lecture. And
Okay.
towards the end of the lecture, if you have any questions from YouTube or from offline questions from your conference hall or from Bhopal team, we can have a question answer session.
So we have 1 hour now, roughly.
Yeah, we have 1 hour. Yes.
not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. స్ట్రీమ్ స్కోర్ వస్తుంది స్టార్టింగ్లోనే ఇది వస్తుంది కానీ మరి వాళ్ళు అసలే జనాలు చాలామంది ఉంటారు.
Okay, sir. Then I'll be going live right now.
అని చేయొచ్చా?
Already 13 viewers are waiting for us.
ఎంత బ్యాండ్విడ్త్?
Good afternoon, everyone. As part of Swachhata Pakhwada 2022 celebrations at Master Control Facility, we had arranged a couple of webinars. Today's webinar is about diabetes and obesity by Dr. Malhar, Chief Innovation Officer from Freedom from Diabetes, Pune. Allow me to introduce him to you. So his primary area of interest is he is a specialist in child and adult obesity, diabesity. His current work profile is as a Chief Innovation Officer at Freedom from Diabetes, Pune. Freedom from Diabetes has reversed over 30,000 participants, with 1,000 plus patients are off medication. He has completed, about his education, he has completed his postgraduate in sports and exercise science from Auckland University of Technology, New Zealand, in 2014. He has a diploma in exercise psychology and exercise physiology from UK. He is a bachelor in dental surgery from New Zealand, certified triathlon coach, and about writing lives advanced from Oxford, UK. He has multiple hobbies, like he is a multiple time marathon and triathlon finisher, adventure sports enthusiast. Also, like he can pull a few good strings as a campfire guitarist, and he is also a blogger. So like this is a very burning topic, obesity and diabetes, like this our current lifestyle may be one of the reasons. So we must have faced troubles because of that. So Dr. Malhar is here to throw some light on this topic. So over to you, Dr. Malhar.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to all the viewers. Thanks to the management first at I'll just open the presentation so that I can, it's visible, right?
1 second, it is loading. Yeah, we can see it now.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone at MCF ISRO and Bangalore, Bhopal, wherever you're listening from. Thanks so much for joining in. Today I promise will be a little bit of a myth buster also, and little bit of clarity also will happen. And hopefully I can urge you to take some action regarding your health. So, yeah, anything else you want me to do, or should I just go ahead now?
Yeah, you can go ahead. You can put your presentation in presentation mode.
Perfect. So then you put your mic off.
Sorry.
You'll put your mic off now.
Yeah, I'll be turning off my mic,
Yeah.
as well as my video feed. Yes.
Okay, so just let me know, because once I put the slideshow, I can't see the back screen. No?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Done. So today's objectives, very simple. See, we're not going to spend too much time talking about what it is we do and how we do. We're just going to get straight to the topic today, which is in every house. Earlier, we used to have one grandparent who was diabetic. Slowly, by this generation now, we are seeing one parent and one grandparent. I think by the time we cross the next 2 generations, we'll probably have a diabetic in every generation. And I'm an adolescent obesity specialist. I see so many children now who have symptoms of adults. And the scary part is not that they have the symptoms, that they know what it's called. You know, because they Google so much, they've already found out things that adults didn't even know they had. So this kind of accelerated knowledge and accelerated symptoms are creating a lot of problems for the next generation, because they're imagining a lot of them also. So we need to spread some light on this. So what are we going to learn today? We're going to learn what causes diabetes and obesity. What's the primary cause? It's not very complicated. There are different body types. The Indian body type is very unique. Okay, it's not like the Western or the Eastern. We are not very thin like the Japanese. We are not very obese like the Westerners. But we are a thin, fat body type. We are a very unique body type in this, and we are more predisposed for diabetes and obesity. In fact, we don't look very fat, but yet we have a lot of internal obesity. The role of diet and exercise. So I'll be showing you. There's a lot of confusion about what to do first. People tend to jump into all joint gyms and go running and doing a lot of things which may not be age appropriate. We will be talking about role of diet and exercise, more importantly from an age perspective, and few simple steps. The whole goal is to reverse age because these two conditions cause what we call accelerated aging. So you may be 30 years old, but your body is already 40. At 45, you're already 60. At 60, you're close to 80. So you're always battling issues ahead of time. So we need to kind of, it's a what we call medical inflation, it's going ahead of time. So this is the agenda for today. Thanks to the team here at MCF ISRO for having me. Okay, it's a real honor to be with you guys. My aim today will be what's given in this slide. Okay, give a man to fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So I'm hoping here that today in 1 hour, you at least learn that you need to fish. It's just a start. You at least need to go fishing. You need to go hunting for that perfect diet, that perfect exercise. You need to look at your own plans. You need to take ownership of it. Yes, we can help you initially. Everyone can help you. Google can help you, but you need to learn how to fish. So my aim today is not really to teach you how to fish, but to just send you fishing. If you can just do that much today, my job would be done today. Okay. What are common desires that, when you take the entire spectrum of ages across, from you take an 18 to an 80-year-old, everybody essentially desires some very simple things, starting with what we call graceful aging. You need to age gracefully. Like I jokingly called a friend of mine that day and he saw a video of mine on YouTube, which was called graceful aging. And I said, did you see it? So I said, what are you doing right now? He said, I'm disgracefully aging. So the medical conditions going ahead of time is not graceful. We need minimal dependence on medicines and family. We need to trouble family less as far as doctor visits. We need to rely less on medication. We are literally adding a medication every decade. So at 25, sometimes we are seeing people with BP issues, PCOD, lots and lots of fancy medical conditions, all lifestyle. Everyone believes they are autoimmune, but they're not. Medicines are going off the charts. Everybody's on minimum 2 tablets. And now it's reached a point where to eat something, you have to first take a tablet. So these are not, this is not a very healthy way of living. So we don't want this dependency. We want a resilient mindset. Now, it's a real honor to be only someone who's highly optimistic would believe that nothing can go wrong. Be what's given things in this will go wrong. When you're crossing the road, somebody's going to come and hit you with a 2-wheeler. You're going to break an ankle. Getting down the steps, you might fall, break the wrist. Things like this keep happening, but we need to bounce back quickly. This adversity is the only permanent feature that humans have. We will keep having adversity, some or the other. Now, we may prepare for financial adversities by savings, but I don't see any of us preparing for physical adversity. So when you build your body to be that resilient, it recovers very fast from adversity. So we need to have that kind of bank balance in the body. Secondly, the mindset. Some of us have reached a point where we kind of given up. No, this is the way it is. That optimism has made way for chronic pessimism. We need to recover optimism back. We need to have clarity. All of us need to be very clear what does it take when it comes to our own health needs. Our own health needs. What's our genetic profile? What food suits us? Does not food suit us? What kind of exercise suits us? What doesn't suit us? What do we tend to like? What's our inner calling in this domain? All of us have an inner calling. We tend to copy a lot of others. Initially, someone's running a marathon. I'll also go running a marathon. But after a few weeks, you realize that's not for you. You might go to the gym and say, after 4 days, you're not settling down. So clarity. What are the core causes of diabetes? Diabetes is nothing but diabetes plus obesity. It's the most common combination that we see now. The genes are loaded. This sentence actually sums up the entire lecture for you. While genes may be loaded, the lifestyle pulls the trigger. So your lifestyle is pulling the trigger. All of our genes are loaded. Every house has at least one or two diabetics in there. So the genes are loaded. But what took our parents and grandparents generation 40, 50, 60 years for the genes to get pulled? Here the trigger is getting pulled at 25, 30, 35. And as you know, both diabetes and obesity tend to be progressive. It just keeps slowly, the graph just keeps rising. So the medicine graph keeps rising, the sugar control keeps decreasing, weight keeps rising. It's more and more difficult to lose weight as you get older. So we need to stop pulling the trigger at some level. Overnutrition. Now, overnutrition is nothing but it correlates with what we call affluenza. Affluenza is the opposite of influenza. Slightly poorer people get influenza. As you get more and more affluent, we tend to start over nutritioning ourselves. The first tendency with wealth and with higher incomes has come over nutrition. We eat out more, things like that. So we need to pull back and realize that health foods, while expensive, are actually the same when you adjust for the outside food that you would have eaten anyway. So we need to ensure over nutrition is a little bit under control. A lot of us make just basically poor food choices. We just make poor choices and wean for taste and happiness. When you're not found joy in exercise or in other things that are in conflict with the overeating, overeating becomes the only option to get happy. So this joy component, which should come from somewhere else, it should come from the pursuit of health. It's coming from health is getting ruined, but we're still pursuing it because it gives us temporary, momentary happiness. ZSKB is a term I use for all my patients. It's called Zyada Sochne Ki Bimari. It's just nothing but stress and overthinking, over-analysis of a lot of things. We tend to over-analyze quite a bit, especially when it comes to profession, careers, families, children's, marriages. It carries on and on. But there's a 24/7 thought going on. And one of the key causes of body stress as well. Unidimensional exercise. Most people, especially Indians, believe walking is some kind of a magical thing. Okay, walking will never help you unless you've had a bypass or you've had an angio where you're restricted from doing more intense activity. Walking is a very dangerous tool for most humans. It ends up causing you to go back to the top here, overnutrition. So the more you walk, the more you'll overnutrition. Over a period of time, you'll get diabetic. Walking, diet, yoga, again, while it's useful for flexibility, walking is useful for cardiovascular. The real body development, which goes with aging, which is the strength, we are not targeting that. So we'll talk about that a little later. So remember, diabetes has core causes. Genetic is always going to be there. Overnutrition is always thinking too much, just overthinking, and unidimensional exercise. You can't just do one thing and expect the body to adjust everything else. If any of you has any of these common diabetes symptoms, either you're already diabetic, you're pre-diabetic, okay, so weight loss, blurred vision, frequent urination, excessive fatigue, increased thirst, or slow healing. Now, these are classic 6. There may be many, many more, and I've not adjusted for complications here. So they can be quite a bit more, but to start with, typically people go to the doctor with these symptoms. That's when you do the sugars and that's when you realize. And in COVID, there's been a lot of surge of diagnosis because people have gone to the hospital for something else but got diagnosed. So these symptoms you should not take lightly. Okay, you just need to visit the physician and take the right steps initially. Tests, remember 2 key tests are the HbA1c, which is called glycosylated hemoglobin. This is a 3-month average of your sugars. This average is what any doctor will look at first when you go there. If you are above 6.5, some data show 6.3, some people calculate it as 7. But in general, if you are above 6.5, you are definitely diabetic, which means your fasting glucose, your fasting sugar is above 126. Now, we are not even getting to postprandial because postprandial can depend on what you ate and many other factors. But these 2 factors are critical. Your fasting sugar should not be above this number. For pre-diabetic range, it's in this number. And for normal range, should be below 100. And A1C, 5.7 to 6.4 is pre-diabetic. And I would recommend all of you after a certain age, get this test done. Do your A1C, especially after 40, 45, you should do it at least once a year, especially if you have genes that carry the diabetic element. Okay. Common symptoms combined with these two tests will in a way give you clarity as to what to do ahead. Don't just sit on it. We see a lot of people who say, no, I'll do it on my own. When they try doing something on their own, typically at 47, 48, they either have one organ which comes under pressure and then they have to run around to those specialists again just because they didn't take the right action. So what may work very well for your pancreas may not work very well for your kidney. So you need to be careful with diets in that sense. What starts going wrong? Let's understand essentially. Now, this is all good in lab tests as well as in, we understood the lab tests, we understood the symptoms. So what actually starts going wrong? Level 1 for any lifestyle illness is basically an increase in fat percent. You just overeat or every day, let's say, now all of you can do a quick mathematic on your phone. Open the calculator and multiply your weight, your body weight by 25. If you multiply your body weight by 25, you will get your rough number of calories that you need in a day. Now, if my weight is 80, I need 2000 calories a day, which includes a little bit of exercise. I need 2000 calories a day. Now, each of you can multiply your body weight by 25. That is the number of calories you have to stay inside. If you start crossing that series every day, day after day, day after day, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, the body will have to store that energy somewhere. It starts storing it as fat. Initially, it stores it in the muscle while you're younger because you're able to do a little exercise and burn it off. But as you get older, the muscles get weaker and you start storing it in other places. Initially, it's under the skin, then it's in the stomach, and then it gets worse. So this shape, you see the body shape has gone for a toss here because there's excess fat. So this increase in fat percent simply occurs because of one thing, there is excessive intake and not enough output. But it's also a matter of aging. Okay, so this is level 1. You have to notice if your body is out of shape, you're definitely crossing level 1. Level 2, fat starts accumulating in the organs now. Your organs, your liver, your pancreas, and in multiple other places, there will be fat deposits. We call it fatty liver. And even in the pancreas, when there's little bit of fat accumulation, the body stops functioning normally. That is when we call it step 3, which is metabolic syndrome. Now the body starts dumping fat and sugar from the liver, from here, from everywhere into the blood, plus you keep eating. But at the same time, there's insulin resistance and so many other things start going wrong that it's called metabolic syndrome, which includes the heart, the liver, the kidneys, the pancreas, all multiple organs start getting pressurized because there's excess fat all over the place, which means insulin can't do its job. It can't store energy. So all the excess energy is just accumulating and accumulating and creating problems. So this is one, level 2, and level 3. Now, easy way to check. Look for the ulnar styloid process. This little bone here in your hand. If you turn your wrist down this way, you will see this bone here. If you can see this bone, it means that you have reasonable subcutaneous fat, which is this first fat that I showed here, this one. At least on your arms and legs, it is reasonable. Means you're probably below 25 or 30% body fat, which is not bad. As you can see, some people, it's completely hidden. Yeah. Now, this means the fat percent is typically above 30. These are just small clues that we can use to understand what's going on. We don't have to use fancy lab machines every time. Can you see your clavicles, this bone here? If you just keep both your arms on a table or in your lap and just see, not whether you can feel it. I know a lot of you right now are trying to feel it. Feeling it is not the solution. We all have the bone. If you have to look at the person sitting next to you and try and see whether you can see their clavicle. Again, this is a marker of fat percent. Typically is below 30, which doesn't mean it's healthy. It's just reasonable. You may still be in the overweight category. So these two tests, I would urge you that as you start diet and exercise, things like that, keep watching the mirror for this bone starting to emerge, for this bone starting to emerge. Okay? Small triggers, this help the mind stay focused. What are the lead actors? Who are the two lead actors in diabetes? One is the fat cell itself. It just keeps storing, contracting, storing, contracting. As we keep eating, it expands, it decreases. So we are born with a certain fixed number of fat cells. Some people have more, some people have less. The point is the fat cell expands, contracts, expands, contracts. That keeps happening. As we exercise, it contracts. As we don't exercise, it just keeps broadening. So we have to ensure we keep the fat cells compressed, limited. Second, the liver and the pancreas. The liver is in a way the CPU of your body. It decides what you do with what you eat. So the liver plays a very critical role in what's called calorie partitioning. You may eat anything. You may eat something that's 100% carbohydrate. The body might store it in the muscle instead of the fat. It all depends on how the liver has been programmed. So diabesity requires these three to be functioning perfectly. That's enough about diabetic theory. More important for us is what we see. Now, for you guys, you all are not going to actually do lab tests all the time. You need to have a visual format of what's happening with your body. Just understand body shape. We have three types. Everybody is not the same. Okay, we have 1, 2, and 3 body types. Especially in India, we have this one. It's not so much common abroad. They are more this category, and they have a lot of this category, which is the endomorphic, the very broad build. This body type, an ectomorphic body type, is very lean, and you'll see this in certain communities. They are really, and villagers typically, a lot of them are like this. They are about between 40 to 55 kgs of weight. The mesomorph is between 55 to 70 kgs of weight. And 70, 80 upwards, up to 150 now we see the endomorphic category. All three have completely different ways of functioning. We are not going to give everybody the goal of becoming an ectomorph. That's not the goal. Neither does he have to become this. It's not going to happen. So each body type is unique. I have a video on this on YouTube. You can watch that video. It's got a slightly more detailing on what to do and how to know which body type you are. I won't go into that today. Okay, so and just for knowledge today, you can look at your friends around you. You will know, oh, somebody is very lean, somebody is middle type, and somebody is the larger body type. There is a fourth type also. Now, this guy believes I am thin, so I am fit. Okay, this is the most dangerous body type. Okay, because this guy is what we call thin fat. Looks thin, but has good amount of fat here around the organs. Now, a lot of people use BMI, right? They think body mass index is everything. Body mass index does not tell you the complete picture. Okay, as you can see, these two body types. Is Dwayne Johnson, is The Rock from our generation. His BMI was 32. He still is 32. He's nearly 120 kgs, but he's 120 kgs of pure muscle. There's not much fat. They both have less than 12 to 14% of fat. Their BMI gives a wrong picture. This BMI shows 32, which means his fat percent is supposed to be 32 by this metric. Not necessary. It all depends. So just using weight by height square as a formula does not always work. So you shouldn't just focus on this number all the time. A lot of you will go, oh, my weight is perfect. My weight is height in centimeters minus 100. So if I'm 181 centimeters, my weight is 81, I'm fit. Not true. I can actually be 30% body fat and still look the same. So it doesn't work that way. You have to ensure that your clavicles are visible, this is visible, your stomach fat is significantly under control. The chest must be out, stomach must be in. These are basics. Otherwise, there is excess fat accumulation. So don't just go by numbers. BMI is the most common number. And if you want to calculate your BMI, just go online and you can use any calculator. There are many BMI calculators. You can use them. But frankly, they don't tell you the picture of how the body actually is. And you can guess for yourself. If we have one body type like this, the lean ectomorphic body type, typically 40 to 50 kgs of weight. This is the 50 to 65 kgs of weight, the meso. And we have an endo. Now, each of these body types can become overweight and obese. Like this lady, when she started out her journey, not with us, but when she started out her journey in general, when she was in college, she was actually an ecto. Over a period of time, she has moved ahead here. So her goal can be to go back. How do you know which one you are? You need to talk to your gym trainers, talk to your doctor, start reading up on body type. Don't take an endomorphic body type, which is a large body type. It's like an M-class Mercedes or a big SUV, and you're telling it to have to become very small. It's not going to happen. The engines are much larger. Okay, so this body type is different. Lastly, when we come to exercise for each body type, if you make an endomorphic body type run a marathon, it will look clumsy,
సెషన్ ఆల్రెడీ
which is why I've written here. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. So this lady will think, oh, I can't exercise at all, I'm so unfit. She's in the wrong place. If she goes to the gym, she will comfortably lift weights. If he comes here, he will comfortably run that 10-kilometer marathon. The question is of aligning the body type with what arena you choose to perform. Now, if you take something like cycling, both of them will be able to do it. She will need a little more training, but she'll be able to do it because she doesn't have to really carry her weight on her own 2 feet. The cycle helps. Swimming, she will swim 100 laps if she trains. So this body can be trained for most things, but running may be difficult. Similarly for him, if you tell him, no, I want to lift, I want to do 100 push-ups, it may not happen till he increases muscle mass, but he may not gain muscle mass because it's a body type. So we need to realize that before we start judging every body type, first understand what its performance limits are. What is it built for? Okay. So do not push any body type into the wrong physical activity. What's the first step to systematic reversal? Everyone comes and says, where do I start? Should I go to the gym first? Should I diet first? Diet is always the first step, and don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Do not start exercising. Because a lot of people tell me, sir, I wanted to change, I've started walking. The minute they start walking, the 1 or 2 rotis they were eating now becomes 4 rotis. And what objective was to be achieved has fallen out. So don't start with exercise. We always start with diet. And which diet? Nowadays there's a whole internet is flooded with diets. There's keto, which is more high fat and high protein. Mostly eggs, bacon, cheese, butter, oil. Paleo is pure meat. Vegetarian is just turning vegetarian. Vegan is turning no dairy and no bakery also, probably because it contains milk. Mediterranean is more berries. Raw is mostly fruits combined with raw fruits and raw vegetables. Low carb is simply not as low as keto, but low carb. You just restrict your carbohydrate. You stop the bakery. You reduce the rotis. You reduce the rice. And then there's no sugar, where people just stop consuming sweet and sugar in any form. So there are many diets available. You need to somewhere settle down with your cultural preferences, with your mental makeup, and what's easy for you. Like you may love non-veg, but having chicken 3 times a day, 7 days a week may be difficult for you. Similarly, vegetarian, if you come from a community where vegetarian hasn't been a natural alignment or your upbringing isn't, may be difficult. Vegan is one approach. See, all these approaches work. Everything works. You have to put your head down for 3 months. You have to take away the standard triggers of obesity. The key triggers of obesity and diabetes are essentially high levels of bakery and dairy. If you take these 2 away for 3 months, the body will heal phenomenally. Like you'll be surprised the way it just shrinks when you take away these 2. And to some extent, more than these 2 is outside food. You have to stop restaurant food for 3 months because that is the most, in a way, it's very, very high on taste. And we all know that anything that's very high on taste has to be high on oil, butter, ghee, because without those items, we're not able to get that level of taste into the food. You need to pick any of these approaches, whatever suits your cultural. I will be sharing some proportion-based ideas more than the qualitative part of it. Okay? So we have carbohydrates in our regular diet. We eat rice, roti. This is staple Indian. Some people might have millets. Some people might have other kinds of grain. But starting with rice and roti, which is typically wheat. Then proteins. Proteins may be consume a lot of dals, fats, there's nuts, seeds, and even this I have not put in the oils here, but there are the other oils that we use. Bakery, there's a lot of bread, there's a phenomenal amount of milk, butter that goes into the bakery. And then of course there's dairy. Dairy is one of the staple foods for Indian vegetarians because when they don't get enough protein, they start binging on dairy. We have non-veg. Non-vegetarians typically eat a little higher protein, but when they don't get enough carbohydrate, they tend to come back to bakery. So fruits, we all know fruits are relatively high in fructose, which is also sugar, and don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Fruits are just as damaging as anything else when they cross more than 2 to 3 servings a day. So just to give an example, one apple is about 5 spoons of sugar. Now many of us will just have 2 apples just like that, but in the tea we'll not put sugar. In chai mein shakkar nahi dalna, but we'll go and eat 2 fruits. So every fruit is very high and very high glycemic, especially papaya, watermelon. So before you start making a sort of plan for yourself, or you preferably visit someone who helps you, get a working knowledge of how these fruits work. Get a working knowledge, start Googling what do they contain, how much sugar do these fruits contain. Indian sweet is a no-brainer. It's again regional, but we need to be careful. Okay, again, we don't eat this every day. Most of us may have it once a week or even less. But again, very, very high on sugar and fat. Chocolates, similarly, sugar and fat. The question is when you start having all this in a week. So most of us cross all this in a week easily. We easily have carbs every day. We have proteins every day. We have fats every day. We have non-veg. We have dairy. We have bakery, fruits, Indian sweet, and chocolate. All this will cause terrific metabolic stress. And I may have missed a few meals which are combination. This metabolic stress over the years our bodies cannot handle, especially when the genes are loaded. Okay. If that's not enough, we have the great chains. Any travel, I didn't even throw in travel into that. Travel is where it all falls apart. Because when you go to a restaurant in a hotel and you're staying overnight, there is no concept of what to order. We look at a menu and it's confusing. And there's no concept of healthy there. You're not going to order a salad there. So when you go to this is midway from Bombay to Pune, the midway plaza as we call it. There's only McD, Subway, Starbucks, KFC, Kailash Parbat, and South Indian. So there's North Indian, South Indian, non-veg, KFC. This is deep fried chicken basically. That to deep fried in cornflakes. Then there's Starbucks, there's Subway. Now most people here tend to go with Subway, which is not a bad choice. But in Subway, when you add the sauces, the sugar and carb content goes through the roof. KFC looks very innocent, but the minute they add the cornflakes on it, it's again very high in carbohydrate. It's not that carbohydrates are the enemy. It's just that we have to be very rational with what we choose, because we tend to think, oh no, it's not that heavy. It's all protein. In a person who does not work out, protein also is converted to fat. So these are all myths that if I eat only protein, I won't gain fat. It's not true. If you're crossing 2000 calories or whatever your calorie limit is, it doesn't matter where it comes from. The body doesn't understand where it came from after some time, because you're just surplus, right? Now, बहुत ज्ञान हो गया, बहुत ज्ञान हो गया. करना क्या है? Okay, diet करना है, exercise करना है. So what do we do now? Now we have understood. Let's just revisit what all we have understood. We have understood 3 things. We have understood what causes it. It's just over. I'll just summarize it in one word. What causes this is nothing but sustained overnutrition. So we had a lecture by Dr. Roy Taylor who said, just eat below your calorie needs and you'll be fine for life. That was his summary of nearly 45 years of research in diabetes. He's a UK-based researcher, and lovely book. And it's called, I think, Reversing Your Diabetes. And we all read the book. It was fascinating. He just said, just eat slightly below your needs and you'll be fine, which is true for anything else, I guess. Just spend a little below what you need to spend and you'll be fine. About body types, we have learned that there are ecto, meso, endo, 3 types of bodies. Different types of diets will be needed. Different types of exercise will be needed. Different type of goals will be needed. So let's learn the different body types, read about them, watch the YouTube video. The role of diet. Diet and exercise have very, very different roles. We should not combine the two. And I'll now show you some simple steps too. Okay, simple steps too. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Diet in its very nature decides what your weight is. Okay, because diet finally decides the calorie input. So diet in a larger sense will decide your weight. Sprouts, we suggest just for a few months. You can have the sprouts and the salads. Get used to eating a little salads because they tend to keep you full. You have to develop a taste for them. a lot of us, we tend to put a little spice on it, like a pickle on it, or in Maharashtra we call it shengdana chutney. We put a little spicy groundnut chutney, so it tends to taste a little spicy, and we get that little kick. Otherwise, just raw salads may not suit your palate. Sprouts is something that's very useful. Have a katori bhar. You need to get used to eating for fueling's sake, not eating for taste all the time. Morning cooked dal based items are ideal, like besan chilas, or even if you have a dal based idli or a dal based dosa combined with that, or if you want to have an egg, there's no harm. This is breakfast should be little rather simplistic because your pancreas need to be less loaded in the morning. Just take your foot off that habit of having a 5 to 700 calorie breakfast. See why the Kellogg's and all these, the cornflakes did not succeed much in India for adults, because adult Indian is used to eating warm food for breakfast. He doesn't like cold. That's why he gets up in the morning, he first has tea. We are used to this will be the warm component here. Lunch and dinner is not very complex. I just want you to control this grain component. You need to bring it down to 25%. If you can keep this down to 25%, you will automatically control the the diabetogenic parts of your food. The foods that cause obesity and diabetes are primarily the grain, because we don't tend to control the quantity. We just go on, and second serving, third serving, the rice, there's no limit to the amount of rice we can eat. And similarly with rotis, if the sabji is good or the non-veg is good, we'll have 4 rotis. Cannot afford that after a certain age. When we are 25, 30 years old, it was okay. We have to learn to detox. Like I just met a friend of mine, she's lost about 18 kgs. So I just asked her, you work in a restaurant, how are you pulling this off? And she said, to be honest, only the first 5 kgs were difficult. After that, now I don't see food anymore. So that's the leptin resistance. That's the insulin resistance. The hormones keep telling you, go eat. But the minute you reduce that 5 kgs, the entire body settles down. How do you reduce that? You need to have a month or 2 of just a little foot off the pedal when it comes to the grain. Okay, so take your foot off this pedal, bring it down to 1/4. Now, a lot of people, you say, oh, I'll stop grain altogether. That doesn't work, because if you have to maintain an active lifestyle, go out, actually do things, you are going to need a little bit of grain for your blood sugar maintenance. The keto lobbies will always tell you it's not necessary, but Indians, by our very nature, we are not vegetarians, we are not non-vegetarians, we are carbitarians. We love carbs. So we eat carbs all day, and unless we get carbs, we will go and eat the sweet version of it, which is the high glycemic desserts. So we need to be careful, okay, understand where we come from before you get into diets. And I have seen people who do rapid fire diets, they cold turkey themselves, they eat very little, they do only intermittent fasting, they do ketogenic diets, like all kinds of these literally metabolic surgeries where they stop eating altogether. In about 2 years' time, research has shown that almost all of them gain back the weight. So in 2 years, you will get back all the weight, because you cannot maintain that kind of diet permanently. It's too much of a war. So be careful with the grain. You should have your grain, but get detoxed from it. Okay. Dal, have a serving or 2. Nothing's going to happen. Just remember, dal is 70% carbohydrate. These are Indian myths that dal is protein. Dal is not protein. Dal has a large proportion of carbohydrate. So between these two, you are already at 50%. So just remember that if you're still craving a little bit, it's always better to go and have more vegetable rather than having more dal. People go and eat 3 katori dal and think they're pulling off protein. It's not true. Salads, simple. There's no limit to how much salad you can eat. This is how lunch and dinner should be. You should draw a line in your plate and keep the division. Exercise. One last thing for diet before we finish. Just remember that a lot of people, when they ask how much did you eat, people will always underestimate how much they ate. They think they ate very little, so they underestimate it. मैं 2 ही रोटी खाया, मैं सिर्फ इतना का, मैं सिर्फ इतना राइस खाया. Like people live in a slightly, they have this under calculation when it comes to diet, and they have an over compensation when it comes to, oh, I did 1 hour of walking, when actually they walked for 25 minutes and they were standing and talking and, lower intensity, just having some juice or something at the park. So people overestimate the exercise they do and they underestimate how much they eat. And that's what leads to a slow and steady increase in the and the ruining of the body shape. So yes, the weight will shape will keep going out of shape. So how do we keep the body in shape? Okay, exercise's primary role is to preserve integrity of your hardware, your joints, your muscles, your shape, your biomechanics, how easily you can move, your aerodynamicity, everything what we were when we were 20. But preserving integrity has two parts. One is retaining what you had. Second and more critical is rebounding quickly from accidents and injury. That is the higher order bit, because as you get older you will get more fragile, the bones do get weaker, you might fall here and there, something or other will keep happening. You have to recover within 6 weeks. As an orthopedic says, 6 weeks you should be back, but you should be fully back. You suddenly shouldn't balloon out of shape like that. Morning walk is not good enough. Okay? This is not exercise, this is an activity. And all of those of you who count steps, please stop step counting today. It was in steps. Like I think, when I was in Auckland, we did a research on, we put that watch on a guy, on an executive who worked in a factory, and we put the watch on a guy who delivered newspapers. And the guy who delivered newspapers did about 25,000 steps a day, because he would keep cycling, walking, running around here and there, and delivering newspapers for about 5 hours in the morning. And in the evenings, he would go to the office and do a little activity. 20,000 steps a day he was doing on an average. And when we took the executive, he would get up in the morning, go to the gym for 1 hour, in which he would run 2 or 3 kilometers. The rest of the whole day, he was sitting at a laptop and working. Now, when we measured both the physiques, the executive had less than 20% body fat because he wasn't eating that much. He was quite active. But the good part was he was doing only 5,000 steps. Whereas the newspaper delivery got 25,000 steps and his body fat percent was 30. Because over the years, as he kept doing more and more activity, he kept eating more and more. He kept getting hungry. So simply doing steps without the intensity of that gym, what that executive was doing, will not cut it. So don't just count steps for the sake of step counting. It's not enough. You need to add intensity, which is either staircase climbing or climbing up a slope, things like that. So exercise only works when there is intensity. Low intensity, long duration, such as walking, has no impact on the body. It will work for the heart. But what's more important is preserving the hardware. The organs is a different story. Now, these are focus areas that you need to touch base with weekly. Always do this in a week. We want you to, in a week, touch base like you do carbs, proteins, fats. There has to be strength, stamina, flexibility. These are the three pillars of what the body needs. The body needs stamina. Yes, walking once or twice a week will have enough stamina effect for you. Climbing stairs is better, going for a trek is better, cycling is better. Anything where you're actually building performance activity, you're putting a watch on, you're trying to get faster, that would be better. Playing a sport, that's all cardio. Stamina is good. Stamina 2-3 days a week is no harm at all. Any more than that and you'll start eating more. Strength is the pivot of if you have to get healthier. You have to go to a health club or a gym at least once or twice a week. If not, do resistance bands. You can see the YouTube video. Trekking is immensely beneficial, not just from a physiological point of view, but from a psychological point of view. If you go trekking, you're among nature. And these don't have to be long 4-day, 5-long Himalayan treks. Just in your area, if you have any small half an hour, 1 hour jaunt into the wilderness, trust me, your blood pressure will drop by half, surrounded by grass, surrounded by scenery. It's a very different feeling when you go for treks. And it automatically builds lower back, knees, thighs, glutes, hamstrings, calf muscles. Your entire lower body gets stronger along with your back. But to strengthen your arms, to strengthen your chest, these two are necessary. And that is what all walkers miss out on. Flexibility, when you go traveling, you have to pick up a bag. Let's say you go keep your bag, your suitcase under in the railway compartment, you have put it down there. Now you have to pull your bag out from under the seat. You need to be able to stretch. And stretch and apply force is very difficult. So this flexibility is the most underrated thing. And this is the most critical one when it comes to recovering from adversity. It ensures you don't get adversity in the first place because the body is nice and supple. Yoga is excellent for this, but not breathing based yoga purely. You have to do the poses and the stretching based yoga. So this yoga which I'm talking about is not the very, the garden variety. It's a little more intense yoga, and we have enough schools of yoga in India. They are all excellent. Even if you follow any online channel, I'm more than happy. Stretching, some people who are younger prefer going to a gym and doing stretching. Good enough. Take support from the trainer. At below 45, it's okay. Pilates is another form of a lot of stability work. It's awesome. Balance and coordination for people above 60, such as throwing a ball on a wall and catching it with both hands. This builds symmetry. As we get older, we keep using only our dominant side. The non-dominant gets weaker, weaker, weaker. One day you will fall on the non-dominant side and you will break it. So to ensure that your symmetrical training occurs, one is the gym and the bands. This is critical. This, if I have to measure a 1, 2, and 3, this is number 1, this is number 2, and this is number 3. If you can keep it in this order in a week, that 2 to 3 days I will do this, 2 to 3 days I will do this, and 1 odd day I do this. And this is something you play at home. Performing tasks with your non-dominant hand, such as picking up a water bottle. If you drop a pen on the floor, use your left hand. Try and use your non-dominant hand as much as you can for not tasks where you don't need accuracy. Like you don't have to write. For typing, we have developed the skill, but for slightly more gross motor tasks, we tend to struggle. So try and develop that left hand, because when you will fall, you need the strength in that left hand to catch you as well. For me, I say left because I'm a righty. These are called the fitness components. Understand that strength is number 1, and all those above 60 are already at 50% of what they had when they were 30. So this is most critical, and the pillar in graceful aging is strength. If you can carry your own body, you're sorted. That's number 1. If you can keep it nice and supple and flexible, that's number 2. Stamina is number 3. Balance coordination is something you do. You just do it by yourself. Okay. Now, what is the role of exercise again? Is exercise for weight loss? No. Exercise will never trigger weight loss. It's only temporary. Because if you don't change your food, the body will just store it right back. So we don't want to become a thin cow and a fat cow and a thin cow and a fat cow simply by dieting. Your metabolism is still a cow, because the minute you ate something, this cow became big broader. So cow does simply walks, stands still and eats. A cow does nothing else. Whereas a horse trots, runs, at times pulls weight, does all kind, carries people. So a horse does far more strength, stamina and flexibility than a cow does. So if you have to become a horse metabolism, a horse is far more resilient to injury. Horse is far more capable, and a horse doesn't drink protein shakes all day. He's also eating grass only. The purpose of what the body does, the liver is the one that changes what it does with the grass. The carbohydrate builds muscle here. The carbohydrate builds fat here. The difference is not in what we ate. The difference is in the activity. So for shape and what tissue you actually build after you eat the food is what decides. So if a horse sits and eats 3 McD burgers, nothing's going to happen to him overnight. But a cow will have far less tolerance to that kind of food, because his body will immediately jump into building fat. Whereas a horse will keep building muscle. The muscles will burn it off. Okay, so we want you to have a horse-like metabolism. Now, what's a sample day for these 3 months that I want you to do? If you have to reverse your health, reverse age, just simple things that you need to do. You need to have your tea. See, the tea has a lot of attachment. So have your light tea. Just don't dump sugar and milk in it. Keep less amount of sugar. 1 or 2 teaspoons of tea isn't going to hurt you. Of milk. But don't overdump the sugar. Don't drink for the sweet. You drink for the warmth, and I know the eyes need to open. Even if it's coffee, gravitate towards coffee in hot water with a dash of milk. It's not milk coffee. Fruit is okay if you're going to work out. Dry fruits are the best. Dates and a few almonds. Don't have fruits if you're not going to work out. 7 to 8 a.m. Surya Namaskars is a good start. If you're struggling for getting out of the house right now with COVID and things, just Surya Namaskars, just 5, 7, 10, 12 are enough. 8 to 9 a.m. Preferably, I would recommend a little protein base. So eggs, sprouts, dal based chila. Now, Some of you might need a 11 a.m. snack where you might actually have the fruit. Stay away from chicos, papayas, all the high glycemic fruits. Go for normal. Have a pear. An apple is still okay. I know people frown on it, but a lot of people who are non-diabetic may still settle for it. Even an orange or two is okay. 1 to 1:30 p.m. is lunch. Lunch, I showed you the 25% principle. 5 to 5:30, tea, coffee, soaked nuts. Again, try and get used to having less calorie dense snacks. We've got obsessed with very calorie dense snacks. Like we need deep fried, high salt snacks. You know, Chivda packets are very dangerous. We have to stay away from them. They are deep fried carbs. If carbs was not enough, we have started deep frying them now. Be careful with it. Soak nuts and seeds. Again, 3 months. If you can do this, you will have lost 10-15 kgs. 7:30 to 8:30, you need dinner, which is like lunch. Try and shut the shop by 8. Try. If you can shut the shop by 8, 8:30, you'll have done your body a huge favor because he has then 12 hours to sit down and burn fat. But if you keep feeding it till 11 o'clock, he cannot start the fat burning engine. The fat is only burnt when you sleep because that's the only time we don't eat. Okay. Anti-gravity exercise is something which we have come up with, which just an hour, 45 minutes after food, just take a little stroll. The standing walking is a little anti-gravity. Just for 5-10 minutes, take a stroll, climb stairs would be ideal. If you can do about 100 steps, okay, total up and down, it would just help the body burn off, start the engines to burning. Otherwise, the engine goes purely into storage. So 3 times a day initially for a couple of months, anti-gravity combined with Surya Namaskar is all you need. You don't need gigantic exercise. Because if you start burning 2 to 400 calories every day in terms of exercise, this food will not work. You will have to eat more. And the more you eat, the more the body will build fat. And one day you will not exercise, but you will continue to eat. So don't eat initially. Okay. What is reversal? Reversal is when your sugar levels start reducing, your hunger starts reducing. You will stop feeling so hungry. Your insulin and medicines will reduce or stop if you're diabetic, of course. Your waist will start becoming half the height. Now, if your height is, say, like for me, my height is 66 inches. 66 inches half is 33. So I need to have my waist below 33. This is ideal. So your chest is broader than your waist. You need to have a radical shape change. Your body needs to just quickly change shape. You need to become a smaller version of yourself, preferably one that you were in your 20s, and become fitter. Fitter means you can suddenly cycle half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour. You have developed the mental, physical stamina to go longer in exercise, and you'll see purpose in it. You'll see joy in it. That is reversal. So if you can kind of aim for small changes, the aim is not to become thin. Everybody will not get here. Some of you might land up here, okay, which is okay. What do you need to start doing? You need to invest. See, health is an investment. It costs money. Everything in health costs money. For me in the lockdown, I hired a physiotherapist. I hired an entire ecosystem I created so that we don't just get reliant on eating junk all the time. We ensured that we spent money on expensive foods which are healthy. Dry fruits are not cheap. Fruits are not cheap. Vegetables are not cheap. Okay, so you need to be careful that you're looking at it as an investment. Has started. Okay, highest return. The highest return will come from this investment because after a level of money we seek joy. It's not returns. Then it's only greed. That if you're getting 12 and 14 and 16 and somebody's getting 22, what about the health that's being sacrificed in the pursuit of that extra 6? If you're just unnecessarily chasing more and more and more wealth at the expense of health, when you know that the baseline is already in place, then at some level, you need to question yourself, where is the return going to come? And where is that excess money going to be spent finally? Is it going to be spent on doctors and hospitals? If that's going to happen, and that too premature, if you're going to spend it 15, 20 years before you might actually need it, it's frankly not worth it then. So my suggestion to you is you need to look at health as an investment. Food, exercise, stress management are investments. They are skills to be learned. It's not a problem to be fixed. You can't just put a band-aid on it and it will magically heal. These are skills. Okay. What do you need to start doing? Most importantly, something which is called the Kuch To Karo model. Kuch To Karo. Preferably just start with the diet. Just stop stop eating